Sensei Quad Bean here. Moment with the master. I think we're up to number 28. 28 signals, signposts on your road to greatness. And you know, here at Dominion Dojo, we promote using what I'm gonna call a life plan, right? A life plan that charts our way forward, that we can reflect on and look back on and get an idea of how we are positioning ourselves for the way forward, charting the way forward. Now, some may call it a game plan. Some may call it a life strategy. Some may call it a plan of action, but charting the way forward, because we know life is structured, right? Life is structured and we see it progresses in phases and stages. So we have the opportunity, the option, the opportunity for decision, right? What we'll get into in a little bit called pivot points, turns, right? Chi, like mates in karate, turns, pivot points. But we can be either actively involved in charting the way forward, charting the way in that game plan, charting the way in that life strategy, or we can move passively, whereas we're not really involved in the direction we're going. We're not really involved in the progress, developing momentum, developing movement, right? Developing the strategy by which we will live and organize our activities and efforts. So we say here that we're focused on the destination. So we're taking a trip. We're in a trip. Let's say on a ship, right? Ship set sail with a manifest of what's on board and a charted plan for the trip, a charted plan for the voyage, a charted plan for the excursion, right? So we say focus on destinations, but we also say that with our game plan, it's in our interest to pay attention to directions. I'm talking signals and signposts. To pay attention to directions. What directions are we following, or whose directions are we following? Who is involved with our course of action? Who is involved with setting the stage of our direction? Or what is driving the stage of our direction? Right? Because in life, we come up on what we call intersections. There are times and periods and points where we either need to pivot or should have pivoted or what should have been aware of when a pivot was required. We come up on intersections that may even be forks in the road, right? Where we have to consider all of the factors at play in our observation, in our awareness, all of the factors at play at our hands to determine which way we're going to go on the fork in the road. Pivot points and intersections, right? So one thing that we do driving up to an intersection, right, is we evaluate the pivot point. We evaluate the fork in the road so that we have a narrative in our mind. This is going to play out for me if I go left in this way, or this is going to play out for me if I go right in this way. Narratives. So we have a story in our minds about what we're dealing with, and we get perspective based on the facts of the situation. I'm getting to signals and signposts, right? We gain perspective based on the facts of the situation, right? And that then drives us into the position that we take. We're going to go left, we're going to go right, north, south, east, or west, right? Which way are we going? What's the direction? Because the focus is on the destination. So we talked about looking at that fork and getting a narrative and gaining perspective. And from there, we see that we are dealing in the element of what I like to call mind science, right? You hear us talk about mind science a lot, right? We talk about mind science and the ability to generate what we want to push out and push forward with. Mind science. You know, and we'll talk a little bit more about mind maps in a little bit, but the mind science, right? We gain narrative, we get control of the story, and we gain perspective so that we can get in position. Narrative, perspective, position, right? So then we have a decision. We get up to the pivot point, right? We get up to the intersection. Sometimes it may be a life decision. Sometimes it might be, something that's going to affect people that are attached to us. We get up to the decision point, the pivot point, the intersection, and then we have a decision. We can either move or we can stay static. Even in our fight strategy, we at the line and we there and we can say, I'm going to move, I'm going to stay static and defend what's coming on. Pivot points, strategy, decision, right? So with signals and signposts, what we want to avoid doing is being stuck. I call it stuck at a green light, right? We have the option and opportunity to move forward, to drive on, to make the best decision, right? Not get subject to analysis paralysis, stuck at a green light. So we can move with the pivot point, make the decision, and make the move to position ourselves for the best outcome, for the best likelihood of reaching the destination. So where do signals and signposts come in, Sensei Kwabin? Glad you asked. Signals, they're important. Signals, they are by design, they are active indicators. If we think about it, we think that in life, we see many systems that operate with signals. We think about the stock market operates with signals. They call them indicators or leading indicators will tell you which direction the stock market is going, which direction are these companies trending towards. Signals. And signals are that they are active indicators for us that we are going in the right direction. Signals are active indicators for us that we are moving according to a plan that we had previously established. Game plan, life strategy, or plan of action. Right? So the signal is that thing that tells us, hey, I'm on the right course. I don't want to get out of course with my signal. I want to get off course or out of lane with my signal. Right? Because signal is a result of personal vision that was drawn out of the uniqueness of who we are and the uniqueness of what we bring to our greatness strategy, the uniqueness of what we bring to our life strategy. Signals, the active indicators, the signposts are directional. They're short range points of information. Signposts, we see them, right? If we're driving on a road, signpost says, there's merging traffic ahead. You're going to stop here. Or you're going to exit here. Hey, here's a signpost, slow down. Hey, you might want to speed up. The speed limit has increased. Signposts give us those indicators that, hey, here's a position, a station that we might want to move or pivot. They are points, stop, start, pivot, change. And they complement signals. The signals are the things that are like, let's say if you are talking about a ship, the beacon that drives a ship into a port of entry. Beacon lets out the light. Beep, 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 beep. Or sometimes beacon gives out signals, active signals, that something is there for you to align your direction with. Us? So we watch the signs, we pay attention to the signals, and we respect signposts. Okay? Signals may even be something as simple as our financial health or our physical or mental health. Signals. Beacons send out signals to ships to let them know they're sensors. They act as guides. They give guidance to the direction that we're taking. Signals and signposts. So we have that life strategy, that game plan, and we're like, yes, I feel like I'm on it, but I'm not exactly sure. So then we pull out the map, pull out the game plan, pull out the strategy and say, which direction, how is this lining up with what I had previously set? How is this setting me up to be best positioned for that next move? In martial arts, we do kata, right? Our katas are set, established moves that give us signals on how self-defense operates in a real setting, if you're doing it properly. But there are different layers to understanding kata. Kata even provides what I'm going to call algorithms. Within the pattern of a kata is an algorithm for problem solving. If repeated and that imprint happens to be set in your mind, it provides you with an algorithm to problem solve. Kata done correctly. Okay, so we get these pivot points that we can move with, but if we're ready for the pivot point, if we're set with the correct narrative and perspective, then we can do things that help us move our position. Here's 3 things that we should be mindful of, and then I'm going to go ahead and peel off on this moment with the master. 3 things. Number 1, the pace of movement. The pace of movement with our life strategy, the pace of movement. Sometimes we are being told to slow down. Jeez, it's hot in here. Where's the fire extinguisher? Somebody get the fire extinguisher, please. We're told to slow down with our pace, or to speed up our pace, to move it forward faster. Right? So the pace of movement is important. Again, number 2, our lane of progress. Sometimes if we're working too hard, we're pushing too hard, we're fighting too hard to make progress through the thick of things, we might need to evaluate whether we're in the right lane of progress. Whether that lane of progress is conducive to the plan of action that we have. Right? Number 3, and this is the last one, modes of improvement. Modes of improvement, because we have to be able to say, hey, this part is not working out right. This part doesn't seem to be feeding the goals and the intents that were set at the beginning of this plan of action. So there are modes of improvement, and there are life lessons that come that lead us into modes of improvement, that lead us into seasons of progress. That leads us into seasons of progress. Right? The modes of improvement, they come from life lessons. They will challenge us. They may challenge us to get back into a lane of progress, to check our pace of movement. Right? So we at Dominion Dojo believe in having the freedom to think and the freedom to move. Right? We're aware in this season, in this time in the world, in this time of life, that we are moved and pressed to be solidly square about our personal identity in this growing pace of change in the age of digitization. Right? So we have this life plan to help us navigate through all these thickets and things that might beset us as we move forward in the plan of progress with our life plan. So just a couple of things to be thinking about, signals and signposts on your way to moving through your plan and your life strategy. Life is structural. Let's take charge of it. Let's watch the signs. Let's pay attention to the signals, and let's respect the signposts. This has been Sensei Kwabing, Moment with the Master number 28. And as you already know, can't wait to see you next week. I'm up out of here. Us!